Rouge Park is an area that stretches from the Oak Ridges Marine to Lake Ontario. As you can see on the picture, it is the area outlined in black. The Rouge Park Management Plan was originally created in 1994 to manage the area identified as Rouge Park South, which is an area considered to be south of Steeles. In 2001, a new management plan was introduced to manage the remaining area north of Steeles in the municipalities of Markham, Stouffville, and Richmond Hill. The Rouge North Management Plan is a long-term plan focused on protecting valuable resources within the specific study area. Rouge Park is public land that has a priority of providing various programs to preserve the land and enhance the ecological integrity of the Rouge River system. Rouge Park North lands are managed by the municipality they are considered to be within, and or the Conservation Authority with consultation with the Rouge Park Alliance. There are 5 specific management areas within the Rouge Park area. They're considered to be 1. A nature reserve, 2. A natural area, 3. A restoration area, 4. A managed area, and 5. An agricultural area. Lastly, there's an additional management area within the Rouge Park area, and this is considered to be a specialty management zone. The Milne Dam Conservation Park is considered to be a special management zone, and they're specifically used for recreational and other purposes. So, opportunities for recreation within the Rouge Park area are determined by the Rouge Park Alliance, the municipality, the stakeholders involved in the current policy. There are 2 types of activities that are considered to be to have pull within the Rouge Park system. One are compatible activities that may include low impact trails, creation or restoration of vegetation including indigenous species, compost and mulching, removal of non-native invasive species, aquatic habitat enhancement, and construction of habitual structures that may include snake bird boxes and nesting areas for birds. Non-compatible activities may include swimming, impervious surfaces, garbage dumping, parking lots, and any destruction of the environment. Special management zones, such as Milne, are the exception of this, as they do have the exception of the compatible and non-compatible list depending on their own planning process or their own municipal policies. So they're considered to be existing parks that include a range of facilities including parking lots, trails, and buildings, and these lands hold to provide recreational and educational opportunities for the public. So here's a picture of Milne. As you can see, it is a fairly large area. It's considered to be a 123 hectare park, and it is considered to be Markham's largest park. Specifically within Milne, Milne is considered to be a conservation area, which means that the resources are conserved slowly throughout time for the future of the youth. And it has a variety of trails, shelters, barbecues, washrooms, fields, a parking lot, and a dam that was implemented, and as a result of that dam, the lake was created. There's also various camp programs, outdoor programs that you can sign up for, such as archery, rock climbing, nature-based programs, and as you can see in the picture, myself canoeing down the Rouge River. So the Rouge Park, the body that oversees Rouge Park has a vision and a goal. So first, the vision is that Rouge Park will be a special place of outstanding natural features and diverse cultural heritage in an urban-rural setting, protected and flourishing as an ecosystem in perpetuality. Human activities will exist in harmony with natural values of the park. The park will be a sanctuary for nature and the human spirit. And that is a quotation take out of the Rouge Park Management Plan. The goals of the park are to protect, restore, and enhance the natural, scenic, and cultural values of the park in an ecosystem context, and to promote publicly responsibility, understanding, and appreciation of this heritage. Once again, that is the goal of the Rouge Park Management Plan, and that can be found on Chapter 2, page number 3 of the Rouge Park Management Plan. So there's various objectives that the Rouge Park Management Plan outlined, and they outlined them in the 1994 document and then continued to have them carry forward to the 2001 document. And so the objectives are to have a natural heritage, to protect, restore, and enhance the natural ecosystem of the park by ensuring the health and diversity of its native species, habitats, landscapes, and ecological processes. To preserve cultural heritage objective, which is to identify, protect, and conserve the cultural heritage features for the park for long-term human use and occupancy. The land use objective, to ensure the protection of the ecological integrity and cultural values of the park through innovative planning, management, and land use in the park and its environments. Management objective, to manage the park and ensure the achievement of all park objectives and to provide an ongoing public involvement in the park planning process. Interpretation objective, to promote a knowledge and understanding of the natural and cultural values within the park, their protection and management requirements, as well as their significance and relationships. Recreational objective, to provide opportunities for appropriate recreational enjoyment within all people within the park. And lastly, I just wanted to reiterate that the objectives from the Park Management Plan were adopted in 1994 and help set a direction for the entire Rouge Park area, and they continue to be objectives when expanding to the Rouge Park North area, and it also recognizes that this is a special purpose area, and these objectives may vary a little bit from the other specific areas within Rouge Park, as Milne is a little bit unique in the sense that it is a special management zone. So, carrying capacities. Ryan Plummer identified the ecological carrying capacity as a maximum of recreational use that can be accommodated by an area or ecosystem before an unacceptable or irreversible amount of damage has occurred. Social carrying capacity is the amount of or the level of users and activities that can be accommodated for by an area before the amount of users negatively affect others' experiences. So when you look at the concerns of the area, the first I wanted to point out is the ecological capacity. So when reviewing both management plans, the 2004 and the 2001 documents, there was no carrying capacities outlined for an ecological capacity. One thing I did find, one problem I did find with that is that there is probably a problem moving forward when you want to implement new trails. And there was a study done by Boers and Cottrell, which basically identified a list of 5 things which should be looked at when implementing trails. And so since there wasn't an actual plan that the Rouge Park Management Plan had for implementing trails, I thought that a problem occurred when trying to implement trails in a resource-safe carrying capacity way, and allowing them to protect their resources and their carrying capacities. The second problem I have with that is that it should not limit resource impacts, or it should limit resource impacts. And I've been through the trails a couple times there, and I do not find that the trails within Rouge Park does limit resource impacts, as a lot of them are right by resources that are impacted at wide use. So for social capacity, there is also no estimations or records of how many people visit the beach on a regular basis or visit the park on a regular basis. I thought this was a problem when regarding social capacity, because realistically, social capacity, there needs to be a little bit of a tangible number to work with. So one study I found was that 33% of people identified too many people in a crowded area to be a problem. So I think that if we talk to the people who went to the park on a regular basis, and they found that they were saying that it was crowded, then we should be implementing some way to manage, or at least record, how many people are going in and out of the park on a regular basis, to identify what the social capacity is and seeing how we can improve upon it. And I think an overall concern with these two capacities in mind, or these two kind of areas where the park has not identified a capacity for them, I think a problem that we could have in relation to both of them is if there is increase in trail usage, it could potentially have a negative impact on social capacity and ecological capacity if they're implemented poorly, or if the amount of usage is significantly increased. So the management recommendations for special management zones that the Rouge Park Management Plan outlined were to undertake the preparation of a detailed master plan to direct the long-term development and restoration of these designated areas, or undertake the development of policies to direct the programming, management, administration, and maintenance of these designated areas. These were the recommendations moving forward for special management zones. However, unfortunately, I couldn't exactly find their current management plan for Milne Park, so I went forward and started to kind of create my own using the Visitor Experience and Resource Protection Framework, which we learned from Plummer. So, the reason why I chose the Visitor Experience and Resource Protection Framework, first of all, it was the most recent of the three that was kind of outlined by the project, and I thought that the most recent one probably had the most teeth and relevancy. The second is that it highlighted public involvement as one of its first priorities in terms of its step-by-step plan, and I'm a really big advocate of trying to get the public involved in planning processes, so I thought that was a great part. And the last is because it's a special management zone, and it's about the visitor experience, and that kind of outlined it right in the title, is special management zones are specifically for recreational purposes, which means that people are coming in and visiting the site, and therefore I thought this was a perfect model to move forward with. So let's move on to step one. Step one, I figured to form an oversight committee above the park, and this is primarily to be an approval body, which could be have a few members of city council sit upon it, and a few members of the public sit on it, who are really passionate about conserving the park, and these people will basically have the final say over the operations of the park, and they will meet typically once a week or so. The next is to hold a public forum. Like I said, I really am an advocate of public input, trying to solidify people and talk to people about things. So have a public forum at either a community center or the park itself. Later on, when you see step 10, you'll see kind of where I'm getting at with this. But I do really think that you should talk to the public about what they believe the park should turn into, and as well, they will really give you a feel of the social capacity level of the park and how they feel about what their maximal social capacity level is. So the next is revisit vision, mission, and goals. As the vision, mission, and goals were not exactly specific to the special management zone of Milne Dam Conservation Area. They were to the entire Rouge Park area. So I think that the vision, mission, and goals should be revisited, and some should be drafted specifically for the Rouge Park area. So the next is to map important visitor resources. So I just pulled up a map from Google Maps, and things that can be mapped are like the picnic table areas, the beach, the washroom, and the dam, and these can just be mapped to allow users to identify where they are, but as well they can also be mapped to help you start to track usage and other data like that. The next is to identify specific management zones. So similarly to when mapping visitor resources, we want to map specific areas which we're going to kind of manage and study over a little bit to see the influxes or reductions in patterns. So the first, we can kind of study the forests that we have within the area, seeing the increases or decreases in amounts of trees or types of trees or species of trees. We can also look at animal populations, whether it be in the forest, around the forest, or down by the water. We can also look at the depth of the water, so how deep is the water from a week-to-week or year-to-year basis, and see how the dam and then also weather patterns are affecting the kind of depth of the water. So step number 6, we'll be measuring the management zones. So here's just a measurement of a random kind of random amount that I pointed out. Here is another, then step 7 is to select the indicators of quality and standards. So again, I just randomly took numbers out and plugged them in to just create a differentiation. And step 8 is to compare the current conditions with the desired conditions and essentially make an assessment out of them. So if you can see the forests, our current quality or quantity, we have about 0.85 hectares of forest land, and what we want is that to be at 1 total hectare. So we want to increase that, obviously. Our bunny population is obviously higher than our minimum that we would like, so that is great. And our water depth is right where we want it, so that is good, but we still need to monitor that, which is why I outlined it in yellow. So, as you can see, step number 9 is creating a strategy for reducing discrepancies. And so my strategy for managing the forest is to create 0.02 hectare of forest each year until we've reached the desired amount, and we can continue to monitor that each year to see whether it's increasing or decreasing greatly, and we can plant trees ourselves. The bunny population, obviously we're going to continue to monitor it, although it's at a great level right now, and the water depth is also at a great, or well, not at a great level, but at a pretty good level, but we're going to continue monitoring it as well. So when we're monitoring our resources, we can look at a few things. So weekly, we can look at water levels, we can look at sand and how dense or how granular it is, and we can look at the amount of usage from people who are visiting the park. On a month-by-month basis, we can visit the vegetation, look at the trees and see how they're blossoming or blooming, and how they are in the fall compared to the spring. We can also look at trail overgrowth, and how often or how much new trails are being created, or old trails are being grown over, to see whether we should be either monitoring trails for to kind of cut down limbs and stuff like that, or whether we should be taping off areas because people are going to in areas they shouldn't be. And we can also look on a yearly basis, and things like number of animals from a year-to-year basis, or overall deforestation of areas. So if kind of total areas are kind of killed off by some sort of bug or insect that might be an invasive species or something. And kind of my last step number 10 is public in. So this is my last slide, which is how do I continue public involvement. And what I want to do is I want to create a community barbecue to try to get people to the site, and then as well I want to get as much information from them as possible to see what we want moving forward. And from that we could find out things like a community garden, or a music sort of festival with kind of local artists and stuff like that, whether they want a different type of programming within the park, or other kind of random suggestions. Because the main way that we're going to be able to figure out what the public wants is by going around and talking to them, getting on their level and having conversations with them. So, all in all, I think the most important point of significance revolves around not being able to find a management plan or policies for this dam. I think that's a point of significance mainly because it was developed in 2001, this plan, and there still isn't anything online or publicly available for the public to see how exactly this park is being managed. And so, especially being a conservation site, I think that those things should be public, and moving forward, more things established have a greater transparency and as well a greater plan moving forward to ensure that the area is conserved properly. Anyways, thanks and have a great day. Here are my references.